Hi. This week for Go Vegan It's Easy, we'll be discussing nonviolence for Martin Luther King Day. There are 3 blog posts attached below, but if you don't have the time to read them, I'm going to read them right here for you, so all you got to do is listen. The 3 articles are entitled Martin Luther King Jr., His Dream and Our Reality, Veganism and Nonviolence, and Veganism, Just Another Way of Reducing Suffering, or A Fundamental Principle of Justice and Nonviolence. Martin Luther King Jr., His Dream and Our Reality. Dear colleagues, today is the day that we celebrate the life and work of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Dr. King stood for 2 important and fundamental values, nonviolence and equality. 42 years after Dr. King was murdered, we are still a nation of inequality. People of color, women, gays, lesbians, and others are still treated as second-class citizens. Yes, things have changed, but we have still not achieved equality among all humans. And non-human animals continue to be chattel property without any inherent value. 42 years after Dr. King was murdered, we still see violence as the solution for every problem. We have still not yet learned that violence is the problem. It is not the solution to the problem. We should take a few minutes to meditate today on the notions of equality and nonviolence. We should resolve to make Dr. King's dream a reality. In the end, his dream is the only thing that will redeem our reality. Gary Francione, 2010. Veganism and Nonviolence. If the principle of nonviolence means anything, it means that you cannot justify any killing or suffering for transparently frivolous reasons such as pleasure, amusement, or convenience. And doing something, quote, with compassion that is not morally justifiable does not change the fact that it is morally unjustifiable. When you decide what you want to eat, wear, or use, you are not acting under any sort of compulsion. You are simply indulging your palate pleasure, sense of fashion, etc., or allowing what is convenient to trump the interests of another sentient being. So, if you embrace nonviolence and you are not vegan, you need to think about what is unquestionably a serious inconsistency. If you are not vegan, please go vegan. Veganism is about nonviolence. First and foremost, it's about nonviolence to other sentient beings, but it is also about nonviolence to the earth and nonviolence to yourself. The world is vegan if you want it. Gary Francione, 2012. Veganism, Just Another Way of Reducing Suffering, or A Fundamental Principle of Justice and Nonviolence. Dear colleagues, it is important to understand that there are significant differences among those who regard themselves as vegans. One important difference is between those who maintain that veganism is merely a way of reducing suffering and those who maintain that it is a fundamental commitment to justice, nonviolence, and a recognition of the moral personhood of non-human animals. The difference between these groups is not merely a matter of abstract theory, it has profound practical consequences. The prevailing position on veganism among new welfarists is that veganism is one way of reducing suffering. Understood in this way, veganism is no different than cage-free eggs or meat produced from a slaughterhouse designed by PETA Award winner Temple Grandin. These are new welfarist claims, all just ways of reducing suffering. If X chooses to reduce suffering by being a vegan, great. If Y chooses to reduce suffering by eating cage-free eggs, great. If X decides to reduce suffering on Monday by eating no animal products and on Tuesday by eating, quote, humanely produced animal products, that's fine. To maintain that as a moral matter, X should be a vegan on Monday, Tuesday, and every other day is, quote, absolutist, fundamentalist, or fanatical, end quote. People like Singer and groups like Vegan Outreach and PETA maintain this position. For example, Singer maintains that being a conscientious omnivore, end quote, is a defensible ethical position, end quote. He claims that being a consistent vegan is, quote, fanatical. Singer labels himself as a flexible vegan, end quote, who will be non-vegan when it is convenient. He mentions eating free-range eggs and dairy. He talks about the luxury of eating meat and other products from animals who have been treated well, in his view, and killed, quote, humanely. PETA claims that adherence to veganism as a matter of principle is a matter of, quote, personal purity, narcissistic cultural fad, and fanatical obsession, end quote. Vegan Outreach makes the emphasis on suffering clear and downplays the use of animals in claiming that veganism, quote, is not an end in itself. It is not a dogma or religion, nor a list of forbidden ingredients or immutable laws. It is only a tool for opposing cruelty and reducing suffering. A fundamental assumption of the new welfare's position is that killing animals does not per se inflict a harm on them. Animals do not care that we use them and kill them. They only care about how we treat them and how we kill them. As long as they don't suffer too much, animals are indifferent to our using them. They have no interest in continued existence. It is this thinking that has led to the happy meat animal products movement, which has been the most serious setback in the struggle for justice for non-humans in decades. It is this thinking that leads PETA and Singer to maintain that we may have a moral obligation not to be vegan in situations in which others will be annoyed or disconcerted by insistence on veganism. I and we reject this view. I and we believe that it is speciesist to maintain that non-humans must have similar minds to human minds in order to have an interest in continued existence. Any sentient being has interests in continued life in that she prefers, wants, or desires to remain alive. We can no more justify using non-humans as human resources than we can justify human slavery. Animal use and slavery have at least one important point in common. Both institutions treat sentient beings exclusively as the resources of others. That cannot be justified with respect to humans. It cannot be justified with respect to non-humans. However, quote, humanely we treat them. The abolitionist approach sees veganism as an application of the principle of abolition to the life of the individual. It is our personal expression that we embrace the moral personhood of all sentient beings and we reject the status of non-humans as chattel property. Veganism is an essential part of our commitment to nonviolence. Veganism is not just a way of reducing suffering. It is what justice for non-humans requires at the very least. It is not the last step in our journey to reject moral schizophrenia that characterizes the human-non-human relationship. It is the first step. If animals have any moral significance, then we cannot eat, wear, or use them. A vegan is not a vegan only on Mondays or only when it is convenient. A vegan is a vegan all the time. I would no more not be vegan just because being a vegan made someone else uncomfortable than I would remain silent if someone told a racist joke or harassed a woman, because to object would make the perpetrator uncomfortable. It is no more absolutist or fanatical to be a consistent vegan as it is to be consistent in one's rejection of child molestation or slavery. Indeed, to characterize consistent veganism as absolutist is itself speciesist, precisely because we would not so characterize our complete rejection of fundamental forms of human exploitation. If you are not vegan, go vegan. It really is easy. It is better for our health and reduces the violence that we do to ourselves. It is better for the planet and reduces the harm that we do to the home of other sentient beings and to the ecosystems that sustain all life. But most importantly, it is the morally right thing to do. We all say we reject violence. Let's take what we say seriously. Let's take an important step to reduce violence in the world, starting with what we put in our mouths and on our bodies. And remember, it's not an impossibility. The world is vegan if you want it. Gary Francione, 2010. See you on Monday night.